Towards the Kingdome.
Time and time again, push the pedal down, try to get away from the others, and again, he's trying to get away. Now, every other time they've worked together to move back up alongside of him. This time, will he get away?
He has really opened a gap. He has put it down and really run away. It's almost as if he said, I'm going to be the first to the Kingdome. Around the other side of the Kingdome, they will be halfway. You could see Zariun at the lead of that second pack, but they are chasing this man. Now, earlier at about 8 3/4 miles, Craig, there was a little bitty hill, and we saw something there.
When we traveled the course with the athletes, there's several points where you thought they might try breakaways, where the athletes said they might try breakaways. One was this hill here. Right after around 8.5 miles, they said, hey, this is a very sharp hill. This would be a good time where someone could try to sneak away. These guys made an authoritative move, Nali on the left, Zariun on the right, but then the others were able to work back and get alongside of them.
But what that told us was these two men have a lot of running in them. And as they head around the Kingdome, it seems that Thomas Robert Nali has made his move. We thought it might happen right at the halfway point, 13.1 miles. They're about 12.5, 12 3/4 miles right now. So the 21-year-old from Tanzania, the younger brother of Simon Robert Nali, who's won the Honolulu Marathon last year, third in the Commonwealth Games, is trying to make his mark. This is the second pack. That's Zariun from Ethiopia out in front. Tabak is number 1 from the Soviet Union. Bud Coates with his hat turned on backwards in 4th place. Catherine Switzer is down there with them. Catherine?
Here's a view from the back. Bud Coates in the pink hat on the left and leading the group, Dave Mora. I'm not surprised, Frank and Craig, that Mora is in the lead of this group because he's got a very fast 10,000-meter time. This is only his second ever marathon. He had a very fast debut marathon, 2:15. And Coates had said, if they run a 2:12, 2:11 pace, it's in my capability. I'm going to stick with them. He started slow and he's come up, and I think that this could be the race of Bud Coates' life.
Thomas Robert Nali in the lead now, and he's been running around those corners, Craig. It's almost as if he's out of sight. He picked a very good spot, 1:06.07 at halfway.
So they've slowed down to about 2:12 marathon pace. But what must these other guys be thinking? 21-year-old in the lead, never run a marathon before, bit of a mystery man until this spring when he went to Scandinavia to win a lot of races in the half marathon distance. As we look at a man with not that much more experience, only 3 years in the marathon, but Zariun has won the Amsterdam Marathon in 2:11 in May of this year. He's the one that knows how to win races. Nali's the one who's using his naivete to break away.
Now it's just a question of whether or not Nali is smart enough to stay ahead, because Zariun has broken away from that second pack. So as they come around the Kingdome, in the shade, they emerge. They're going to head south for a little while, then come back, head back north to the 20-mile point. At this point, the race has truly begun. Zariun has broken away from the second pack. He is chasing down Nali. I think, Craig, we have a two-man race. As we continue on back to the 20-mile point, critical point, Thomas Robert Nali has made his move. Can he hang on?
Days of Thunder is a motion picture about a driver.
Today's presentation of the Goodwill Games is brought to you by Advanced Formula Centrum with beta-carotene. Centrum, more complete from A to Zinc. By Today's Chevrolet, who invites you to see why nobody's winning like the heartbeat of America. By Wendy's Old-Fashioned Hamburgers, the best hamburgers and a whole lot more. And by Sony Tape, official sponsor of the Goodwill Game.
Welcome back, Hannah Storm, along with analyst Frank Shorter, as we continue our coverage of the 1990 Goodwill Games men's marathon. We pick it up now at the waterfront, about the 15-mile mark. Thomas Robert Nali has made his commitment. The Tanzanian says he wants to win this race. Now, the question becomes, I don't think he knew what he was getting into, that blistering pace. Can he hang on? What's happening to him physically at this point?
At this point in the race, he has made his move. He has to hang on. He can't let anyone catch him from behind. He will not win if that happens. And you want to build a lead. A minute would be nice. 2 minutes would be great. His lead was not that big at this point, and he was doing a lot of looking around.
Okay, well, let's look around now as we rejoin our coverage of the men's marathon.
15 miles into the marathon, and Thomas Robert Nali continues to run into uncharted territory. Dave Mora, 21 seconds behind from the U.S. A surprise, and Zeriyun from Ethiopia, 4 seconds back, but there's Thomas Robert Nali. Craig Mosbach, he's never been here before.
You know, very good at the half marathon distance. He's proven that all spring with some big victories over in Scandinavia. But when he went from mile 14 on to run 4:53 for the next mile, clearly he said, I'm ready to run as anybody else.
And he settled down into pace in the weather today. 70 degrees, it's calm, 68% humidity. I don't think this will bother Nali at all. He's used to these conditions. Peter Marr from Canada, number 5, was having a lot of trouble in the heat, it appears, and he is someone who yesterday when we talked to him was very concerned about the weather conditions.
I think the race is basically going to come down to a war of attrition. I think it's the guy who uses the smarts and pays attention to the heat, pays attention to the signals that he's getting, runs a conservative race. This is not a world record course tomorrow. This is most certainly a war of the mind over matter, and sure, there's guys in this race who are probably capable of running 2:10 and 2:11 on a given day, but they're not going to do it tomorrow. If somebody runs 2:11, 2:10 tomorrow, they have run absolutely awesome.
On the course, at this point, Thomas Robert Nali is heading north. If he looks to his left, he can see Elliott Bay and Puget Sound. Downtown Seattle is to his right, but I think his focus is straight ahead. Looking around, seeing where he is. Now, Catherine Switzer is down on the course. We have Bud Coates in the top 5 still, so the U.S. is doing very well. Catherine?
Frank, it is Dave Mora who's thrown down the gauntlet here and gone after Nali. Dave from Bloomington, Indiana, was the 3rd American in the Columbus Marathon last year. And that was his debut marathon. But as you all recall, last year in a very fast race in Bowling Green, he ran a 10-kilometer road race time in 29:40. Now, although that time itself is not spectacular, the competition was. He's a tough competitor, and he's the one who's broken away from the rest of the field. Back in third, second for the Americans now is Bud Coates, and I see far, far in the distance Mike Kahane.
Dave Mora taking fluid. That's very, very important, and he's shown us a lot here, Craig. He went into second place. He is the only one of that group that really tried to chase Nali down.
Nali did throw down the gauntlet with the 4:53 mile. The others backed off, didn't even try to go with them. But then, as you say, Mora was the one that broke away, the least experienced of all the people who were in the following pack, and he was the one that said, I'm going to go after him and try to get him.
And he is chasing down this man if he can. But Nali has had a real advantage here. He put in his surge, they let him get away, and they've also let him slow down to rest.
Right. I mean, once you can get out ahead and then settle back into a 5-minute pace as he's now doing again, you get a little bit of a breather. You've made your break. Psychologically, they're worrying about catching up, and he's just cruising along in a part of the course that I didn't find very interesting when we toured around it.
But he's in a mode now. He's concentrating because this race is 26 miles. You have to know your body. You have to know how you can dole it out. There's Dave Mora in second place now. Nali is still in sight. Mora's looking at his watch. He's seeing what his pace is. But if Nali is uncharted territory because he's never run a marathon, Dave Mora has never been in second place in a major race.
Well, certainly. Also, it's a championship race, Frank, and I wonder if it's a different feeling out there for a Dave Mora who isn't representing the United States in this race, but it's a different kind of feeling in those kinds of races. You don't have the mass packs. You don't necessarily have the mass crowds on all parts of the course as we can see here. It's a completely different atmosphere in a Goodwill Games marathon as opposed to something like the Columbus Marathon.
But he has goosebumps, I can tell you. When you're in these kind of competitions and you suddenly realize, hey, wait a minute, the guys from Ethiopia are behind me. There's only one person ahead of me. What am I doing here? This feels great. This is what you hope happens if you're a distance runner. It's not that big a gap at this point. Nali could still fade. So, from the marathon, we'll go away for a little while, but it's still exciting, and we'll be back.
We are back with TBS coverage of the 1990 Goodwill Games and the men's marathon. Hannah Storm along with our analyst Frank Shorter. Now, Past 20 miles, this is the key point of the race, really starts to take on its character. Our leader, Thomas Robert Nali of Tanzania, is slowing down, and understandably so. I think he's on a world record pace for looking around at this point. That's the only world record in his sight, but meanwhile also in his sight every time that he looks. A relatively unknown American named Dave Mora of Bloomington, Indiana, slowly creeping up, and a very slow process for him to even be in this marathon. Great story.
The further the race went on past 20 miles, the more it became apparent that Thomas Robert Nali was in real trouble. And Dave Mora, it was just a question of would he catch him, and when he did, would he go by?
And Dave Mora not running as an official member of the USA team. Why?
He was on the list to be selected. There was truly a mix-up. Someone lower down on the list was put on the team. He appealed. They put him back on the team, but he cannot wear the USA uniform. He had to run as an individual, but he got the right to run and to win the race.
Okay, so Dave Mora, a relative unknown, but at this point poised to take the lead. His best finish previously in the 1989 Columbus Marathon. Could he get the gold? Let's rejoin the race at a key moment.
Just about 22 miles into the marathon, and the incredible is happening. Dave Mora from the United States is not 5 seconds behind. He is right with Thomas Robert Nali. Thomas Robert Nali ran well over 5 minutes and 20 seconds for a mile. Mora is catching him. Now you see, does he go by, and does he go by hard? Craig?
The best thing to do would be to leave Nali behind right now. Leave no doubt that you are the best one. You are the one who's feeling strong, and that's exactly what Mora is doing here.
And you say to yourself, what am I doing here? I don't care. I'm going for it. But the important thing is the pace. He did not have to run that fast to catch him. Now, how much of a gap does he get? This is a bad sign.
And you see Nali looking around. Who's in third? Nali is not running for first anymore. He's running for second. Mora has gotten a shot of adrenaline by going by Nali. His step is stronger than it was before. But, of course, before, Nali couldn't see him because Mora was behind him.
And he's looking at his watch. He says, I caught him so easily. If I can run 5:15 or 5:20 miles to the end, I'm going to win this thing. This is great.
Very, very exciting. Total surprise. We have to admit it. We know that Dave Mora went to Bowling Green University. He trains in Bloomington, Indiana, which really has become a center for middle distance and long distance running in the United States. Two great runners are in this competition in track and field in the Goodwill Games, Terry Brahm and Bob Kennedy, both of whom went to Indiana University.
And did he go too hard in that last mile? 5:05 at mile 22 in a marathon. When you see you've got someone caught and you went by him easily, please slow down, Dave. Don't run that hard. He's got it if he can really keep up his tempo. This is amazing. Look how quickly he got that gap. And Thomas Robert Nali is still looking around. And if you want to see someone who's running in a discouraged fashion, look at Nali. It almost seems as if he's slumped down. Dave Mora is thinking, this is the race of my life. I have to hold on.
Nali spent all spring in Scandinavia running through the beautiful pine forest next to the beautiful lakes. As we take another look at the pass-by, here they're in what Mick Jagger calls the industrial zone. It's hot now. It's getting hotter every moment. There's no interesting scenery to look at. And Nali, the only thing he had to look at was Mora running right by him here.
And
what a move.
And Dave Mora is taking advantage of these flats. These flats, as they head back east towards the finish line, give you the opportunity to get a lead. There are going to be some slight hills in the last couple of miles, and if Dave Mora has any kind of lead going into those hills, looking the way he does now, and obviously mentally feeling the way he does, he's going to win this race. This is the pass for second place. Tabak from the Soviet Union is going to pass Thomas Robert Nali. That is discouraging. And look at Tabak really speed up there as he goes by, Craig.
Oh, Nali slowed to a walk now. And what is he thinking? He's wondering at 21 years old, did I run my first marathon at too young an age? Supported by the Tanzanian government, they treat their athletes like natural resources, national jewels. He was given the chance to go and train in Scandinavia this spring. They thought he was ready for a marathon. I'm afraid his youthful naivete just hurt him in this race today.
Maybe too many half marathons, 2 in May, 1 in June, and not enough long training runs. That's probably what's catching up to him right now, as he doesn't give up because he wants the medal. But Dave Mora, the I-5 bridge right there, what a great landmark if you're finishing a marathon and you're as far ahead as he is. He must be at least 2 minutes ahead. He probably doesn't know that because he's looking around, because your mind is saying to yourself, I am slowing down. I am slowing down. But once he gets by that bridge, I think mentally he'll know that he's home free. Kathrine Switzer, pretty soon we're going to be going to her. She's in a fixed position. She will be able to see Dave Mora coming by, give us a little better idea of how he looks. He's coming up this hill. This is the last of the little hills. He is going to be home free very soon. Kathrine?
Frank, if you look right over my shoulder, I am standing right on the 40-kilometer mark. That means Dave Mora is going to have 1.25 miles to go at this point. Usually 1.25 miles is a cakewalk at this point for the marathoners in terms of the feeling and the experience and the crowd being so excited for you. But this is going to be very tough. These roads are concrete, and there are a couple of more hills to go, and he's had to negotiate the hills to get to this point. As I look at his body now, having ridden alongside of him for much of this course, I'm seeing that Dave Mora has kept his form, but it is not as good as it was before. The knee lift is not as high, and he's very tired.
We'll be back for the finish of this marathon in a moment.
Welcome back as we are set to conclude our coverage of the 1990 Goodwill Games men's marathon. Great story developing here, Frank Shorter.
Just wonderful story. Athletes visualize in your mind's eye. You put yourself up in practice saying, if I could only get to the last half mile with a minute lead, I'd just coast in. That would be my victory lap. Well, that's what's happening here.
Okay, so we have Dave Mora of Bloomington, Indiana. He is headed for Husky Stadium, headed for the finish line, headed for a gold medal. Let's rejoin our coverage.
Nearing the finish line of this marathon, the Goodwill Games Marathon, Dave Mora is going to fulfill his dream. You can see from the split times here that Nali on the right just exploded. 5:46 in mile 23, whereas Dave Mora ran that 5:05 mile in mile 22 and then had enough sense to back off. It seems to me, Craig Masbach, that he is going to cruise in with this victory. They're right on the finish on Pacific Street.
Well, one of the best things about this marathon is that the very end is downhill. All you got to do is make it to about 100 meters from the finish line, and you could literally do forward rolls down the hill to the finish line. Dave Mora, as you say, fulfilling a dream. What a thrill to win a major marathon like this, a championship marathon, really in a different class from the New York marathons, the Boston marathons. It's a very special experience. He's running 5:40 miles now, but pace doesn't matter.
He won this race, I think, right at halfway when Nali made that burst, and he was the only one in that trail pack to say, well, I'll see if I can go with him. There's the smile. There's the smile of someone who said, I took a risk. I thought I could do it. Maybe no one else did because he had no pressure on him coming in, and he did it. That's Nikolai Tabak from the Soviet Union, 37 years old. He's got a 13-year-old daughter, but he's experienced, not as experienced as this man, but Dave Mora is about to add to his international experience and his international reputation because he will win this marathon in a bit over 2 hours and 14 minutes. He's very close to the finish line. This is a steep downhill on the south side of Husky Stadium on the University of Washington. He doesn't need to look back anymore. He's looking around. Dave Mora from the United States, first time in 14 years, an American man winning an international championship marathon.
For David Mora.
Given the weather conditions, Craig, a very good run.
Unofficial time as we see Tabak heading towards the finish line, 2 hours, 14 minutes, and 48 seconds. A personal best by almost a minute for Dave Mora in very difficult weather conditions and a very difficult course.
Tabak from the Soviet Union had a better personal record coming in, 2 hours and 12 minutes, but this man ran the better mental race. He took off when he needed to, and then when he started to slow down, it didn't matter because he had a 2-minute lead. I don't think he really thought deep down that he would be here. Maybe he thought he could place, but that's what he'll tell us in the interview later on. And here comes Nikolai Tabak from the Soviet Union, number 1.
He'll win the silver medal, Frank. Peter Maher of Canada has moved into bronze medal position.
Here he is now, red top, white.
Tabak thinking maybe I left it too long. He's running a little faster at the finish, you can see, but it didn't matter because strategy-wise, he was outrun by Dave Mora today. but he'll be in second place. And a surprise, Peter Marr in third place, who told us he was afraid of the weather, and with good reason, because it seems that it was smart to hang back. But look at this finish. If I were his coach, though, I'd be telling him, you saved too much to the end. Nikolai Tabak, second place, the silver medal, coming in just over 2 hours and 16 minutes. Unofficially, 2 hours, 16 and 27. So Peter Marr will be a little bit behind, maybe 30 seconds a minute. This will be our third place finisher. Saying that you had to respect the heat, he was way back, came from way back, but Tabak from the Soviet Union, the Ukraine, showing his experience in finishing second. And here comes Peter Marr from Canada, the Canadian raised in Ireland with that Irish brogue, who in the past has gone out too fast and blown up, has run very conservatively here and gotten his medal. Halfway, he probably didn't think he'd be in this position. Third place in the Goodwill Games, and that's it from here. For Craig Masbach and Catherine Switzer, so long from the marathon.
Welcome back to our coverage of the 1990 Goodwill Games, the men's marathon. We have with us in the studio, along with our expert analyst, Frank Shorter, the gold medal winner, Dave Moore. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. In Bloomington, Indiana, he finished first in the race. Thomas Robert Nolly fading to ninth in that race. Bud Coates of the USA finished fourth. Now, when you looked at yourself crossing the finish line just now on our monitor here, you said, I wasn't feeling too good. How about now?
I'm feeling pretty good now.
Oh, yeah?
It was pretty hot out there, and I really felt it at the finish.
You know, the last part of the race, Dave, is very mental. At what point in the race did you really look up and see that he was coming back to you, and you realized you might win?
It was about, I suspected I might win for a while, but at about 20 miles, I knew I was going to catch him for sure. And he just came and got closer, and when I went by him, I pushed down and made sure he didn't go with me.
Well, as people would look to see where you've been training, with whom you've been training, you would look, when you passed Nolly, you can see that you went by very hard. When you went by, was it in your mind to really punch it and get as big a lead as you could?
Right, I ran that quarter mile pretty hard. I mean, there's no split for that, but I really was going pretty fast.
Did all the speed training that you do with everyone else, Kennedy and Braun back in Indiana, did that help you there?
Sure, I felt like a 5,000 meter runner.
Well, once you start doing the training for the marathon, I think you're going to get really good. But so far, you're just spectacular. Congratulations.
Thanks.
David, I know you've never run in a race quite like this with the crowds and such. Can you describe your emotions as you realized that you were going to be winning this race?
Well, I was worried. I mean, there's always a chance you'll tie up, and I just wanted to, there was a real heavy crowd towards the end, and that helped out a lot. And I don't want to say I tried to enjoy it, but I guess in a way I did. I tried to enjoy the last few miles as much as I could and not dwell on the pain.
I understand there's a person you've been trying to chase down here that you've been unable to find.
Yeah, I haven't contacted my parents yet, and it's been kind of tough. She came out here to watch me run, and between the village and everything, it's been kind of difficult to get hold of her.
Those of us who are regular runners think you marathoners are crazy, and I'm convinced of it after being told that you're going to climb Mount Rainier on Wednesday.
It's something I've always wanted to do since I came out here when I was about 12 or 13, and I've wanted to climb it ever since.
Thanks for joining us. Congratulations again. Terrific. We leave you momentarily. When we return, America's best female rower against the world. Chris Carlson, stay with us.
Kirsty Rauta, last we heard of, about 3.5 minutes, and she was also leading Silvana Pereira as well.
Larry.
Let me also add here, we've been trying to get our women's coverage up. We've run into the same technical problems that the ceiling has affected us with our helicopters. So while we have a second, there you see the 8-mile mark, and it is Mida Hamrin with just a 10-second lead over Kirsi Rauta of Finland. Finland women are here. They have several of them here, and their goals are to try and run under 2 hours and 35 minutes so that they can be considered for the Olympic team of Finland in this case. Ursula Noctor, notice the projected time on the bottom, by the way, for Hamrin. Noctor is an Irish lady who's been a good 10,000 meter runner there, who's hoping to run under 2 hours and 35 minutes to be named to Ireland's Olympic team. And that's why several top Irish women runners are here, including Noctor. So there's real game plans for those 3 top women representing 3 European countries in the lead. And they're well under their pace right now. Let's hope they don't fall apart in the latter stages, Dan.
Meanwhile, back here at the finish line, the 5K runners continue to cross the stripe, and Bob Jordan is standing by with a couple of those runners. Bob, first, Bob, you want to talk to a man from the company who is responsible for sponsoring. As you look at the leader in the men's marathon, the Brazilians hanging on, and we'll come back with more in just a moment.
Dan, they're dancing in the streets, the Brazilians are. ×5, and that's how many Silvas there are in Brazil. And Asmiro Silva has the Brazilian record of 2:09.55. He's running pretty close to it right now. And look at the lead that he has. He's opened this up in the last 3 miles over his countryman, Jose Santana, who was in second place. He ran with him for the first 9 miles and then said goodbye. Santana has fallen back. And as I mentioned earlier in our show, and I said to you yesterday, I didn't have the courage to say it on camera, before the show's over, you and I might know the Brazilian national anthem.
We may have to learn it before it's over. Now, we saw this happen last year, though, in a 10K specialist or a half marathon specialist, Dionisio Cerrone of Mexico, who was out to an early, very big lead and then fell apart as they came back south on Lakeshore Drive.
You raise a good point. This is faster than Silva has ever run before for the marathon. He's in the 2:12, 2:13 category, and right now he's trying to run at an average pace of about 5 seconds per mile better than he's ever done before. The women's race has passed 10 miles, and Mida Hamren has opened up a little bit more of a lead on second place. Third place, by the way, moving into third place, taking it away from Ursula Noctor, was Brazilian Silvana Pereira that we mentioned at the top of the show, and she is right now 28 seconds behind at 10 miles, Mida Hamren, who has the lead. Her time at 10 miles, 57 minutes and 37 seconds, Dan, through 10 miles. So the women are running at around a 2-hour, 30-minute, 32-minute pace. Superb time.
For Mida Hamren, she expected to run at that pace, and that, of course, would get her under the Olympic qualifying time.
Well, you know, it's another problem here I should mention that we're facing out on the race course, the runners are facing, really, is they want to beat 2:35, but they've got to do considerably better in their own opinion. And the reason that they have to do that is they want to show their Olympic committee that they will be competitive in the Olympics, not just a competitor.
Okay, Larry, right now let's go over to Bob Jordan.
As the runners go north on Lakeshore Drive, they'll pass the John G. Shedd Aquarium, opened in 1930.
The only problem with that place is you have to stand in a line about a mile long to get in. It's so popular.
Says something about it, doesn't it? Huh? Well, there you see the ceiling, and it's just above the edge of the top of the roof of that building that you see right there, which is the aquarium we were talking about. Must be an honor. You must be quite a guy to have a building named after you.
I don't know that they'll name any buildings after any of the wheelchair competitors, but they are about to come inside.
There you see him, Josildo Silva. The half split should be right around 1:06 unofficially, and it is Jose Santana behind in second place, and a pack behind that of 5 or 6 athletes. There is Santana, the silver medalist at the Pan American Games, and it is Brazil's day so far here in the men's race anyway, and Mida Hamren is leading in the women's as the athletes in the women's race have passed the 10-mile mark. They're actually passing right now about 11 miles into the race. Look at the distance that you see. There's a good camera angle as our vehicle speeds up to be able to see just how big a lead one Brazilian has over the other one.
Silva in control right now as we pass the halfway point in this 1991 Chicago Marathon. There